mobilized the Minnesota National Guard alongside the Minnesota State Patrol for traffic support only. They say that at this point, National Guard members are not on city streets, but Alex, it's important to know that they will be wearing bright yellow vests, they say, to make sure that they can distinguish themselves from every other agency that's on the ground here. Alex?
Okay, good to know. Great detail there. Thank you so much, Rosa Flores. So back with us, Molly and Stuart. Molly, the latest Quinnipiac poll puts public approval of ICE at 40% overall, and just a third of independents approve of the way ICE is handling law enforcement. Are we seeing Americans say, yeah, enough is enough yet? I mean, 40%, when I look at that, I'm thinking it's not that far from 1 out of 2 people.
Yeah, and he's underwater on immigration, which was one of Trump's very few. It was the economy and immigration were the two issues that he was sort of doing well on, and he is underwater on both. The numbers are really bad. Look, what is happening here is actually really interesting, and I think you go back to the murder of Renee Good, because that's how we got here, right? You saw it was like a Rubicon was crossed, and the administration did itself no favors by releasing video of the murder and saying, oh, this proves that we were right. And so I do think that was, you saw a bunch of people from the admin out there just messaging. And these polls show that it did not work. The American people are not stupid. And when you show them a video, they see what they see. So you do have a group that is baked into Donald Trump, and that group is going to go along with anything he says. But you cannot win with just that group. You need to have indies, and what you're seeing here is that indies aren't buying it. And so, look, Trump has always governed for his base, and that has worked for him, though it didn't work for him for getting reelected, but it worked for him, it has worked for him. And I think that he has that impulse. But look, if Republicans ever want to get elected, they're going to need to break with Trump, because otherwise you can't win with those numbers.
So Stuart, let's zoom out here. Trump hits 1 year back in office on Tuesday, but he's arguably lost support since then, as evidenced by the latest AP polling. You've got a majority of people, 53%, saying the country is worse off now since Trump took office, and fewer than a quarter saying their personal finances are better than they were over a year ago.
Okay, well, I thought 2026 would be wild, but I didn't know it'd be this wild this fast. Like, we ain't even halfway through January, y'all. We ain't even made it to the Ides yet, and already so much crazy shit has happened, it's hard to keep track. ICE executed Renee Good in the street, and the best argument they could come up with was basically, listen, generally you shouldn't murder people, but in our defense, she was a mouthy lesbian with a ton of bumper stickers, so what else were we supposed to do? And your Aunt Tammy somehow buys that, but most people are rightfully outraged and protesting further, which Trump has responded to by threatening a day of reckoning. We have a president who was told that people are protesting because the state killed someone in the street, and rather than promise an investigation or justice, he opted instead to imply that he would have the state kill them all in the street. So yeah, not dictatory at all. Speaking of dictatory, in this less than 2 weeks, he's also raided the country and abducted the president for mocking his dance moves while simultaneously threatening to straight up invade and steal the sovereign territory of a NATO ally, which I believe is known in the world of international geopolitics as kind of a dick move. So far, Trump's still trying to act like we can just make Greenland America because they want to be America, which would be a fine strategy, if not for the fact that, no, they very don't. They're like, why would we want that? We have universal health care and a month of paid leave. Okay, sure, but do you have Applebee's? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, you say all that now, but you get a little taste of half-price apps and Black Friday deals, you'll forget all about your little social safety net. Right, the Greenland thing is so insane, right? So much so that there's reports that many in the military are trying to distract Trump from it with other fun options, you know, like a toddler. He's in these meetings like, and once we take Greenland and own the sky, I want to move the Northern Lights to Mar-a-Lago so I can show all my friends. And they're like, sir, actually, we think that for now we should focus on other items. Like, no, I want this. No, it's green. Money's green. I like money. I like reindeers. I want this. No, this. Like, okay, well, we could do something else you like instead. You know, like we could bomb Iran again. Can I watch it on TV and pretend it's an action movie made just for me? Sure you can, Sean. Okay, fine. What's funny about that is we're framing it like we're going to bomb Iran to help their protesters, which is hilarious because A, even us helping another country involves raining hellfire on it, and B, it's a little ironic considering what's going on in America right now. Like Trump's on True Social, like, to the leaders of Iran, your citizens have a right to protest and demand justice and freedom from an authoritarian regime. We will not allow you to keep killing your own people over this. And then Americans in Minnesota are like, we're protesting to demand justice and freedom from an authoritarian regime. And Trump's like, oh my God, I am this close to killing my own people over this right now, I swear. That's how nuts everything is. I didn't even mention his ongoing feud with the Fed or all the Epstein stuff that's still happening, which that might be kind of the point, actually, when you think about it. But either way, 2 weeks down to 2026, 50 more to go. God help us all. All right, YouTube, we'll do the deep dive in just a second. But first, I want to let you know that this week's video is once again brought to you by the good folks at Private Internet. What more do you need to hear, all right? And if you think it sounds overly techy or something, it's not. They're like, here's the app, there's the button. A wild one this year. What a year. We'll say 13 days into it. But yeah, sometimes it be like that, especially in this country. There's 300 megabits, is what Kash Patel said, the FBI director.
I'm just going to start recording. And so I just want to clarify in terms of date, July 18th, 2020, my full name, Lisa Volding. And Riley, you want to state your name and any
My name
other
is
names?
William. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. My name is William Sasha Riley. I was born Manuel Sasha Bartels.
Okay.
But my legal name is William Sasha Riley at this time.
Okay. And I'm just so we're clear, I'm based in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I lived in the United States full time for a bunch of years, but I was brought up in Canada. My citizenship's Canadian. And
We might be neighbors at some point because Canada is right now number 2 on the list of the countries that I am potentially going to move to.
you know, I think it's a good place to look. There's a lot of Americans, actually. I've spoken to Americans that I've told to come here, and there's lots of Americans that have come to visit more, and it's a lot more embracing, inclusive of a culture. So, you know, it's quite lovely. I recommend. In terms of what my approach, really what I wanted to do is like to just really like a thorough discussion. You tell me everything that you've been wanting to say, and
Okay.
I'll ask some questions. This might be one of like however many discussions, and I'll record them. If it's 1, if it's 10, and what I'd like to do, I'm sort of recording with an eye to air your testimony, getting your testimony of what you experienced, what you see suffered, and what you were witness to. And I, in terms of being able to get into a format in terms of affidavits, whether we look at getting help from the International Criminal Court, because obviously what, you and I have discussed already, there's definitely a whole whack of crimes that have been getting committed by a lot of folks, and is even a case where there could be crimes against humanity charges in regards to Trump.
Okay.
So, and what else I'd like to do is I'd like to look at whether you would be okay with, you like transcribing and then publishing something. I publish newsletters selectively. I have a newsletter called Outlaws of Chivalry I publish once in a while. And I was looking at perhaps publishing there, if you're okay, in terms of how it could help us in terms of getting the right legal support in terms of the International War Court.
I am for whatever puts a light on this, because in my mind, the powers that be are already aware of my position on it and aware that I have spoken up. And
Yeah.
The more light that is shed on there, I don't think that I'm incurring more risk, except for some maybe lunatic that wants to be a soldier for Donald Trump, because they are a little crazy. They're a little brainwashed. But I don't mind whatever would bring a little bit more light to this, particularly this stuff. If we can get some of this stuff verified, and I know that me speaking up is one thing, but then the verification process, is important too. And I have read about software where facial recognition software that taps into the banks of known cataloged child pornography. So if the films that they had me make can be verified, it's not something that I can go online, but I am confident that it's there because somebody that I served with in the Army got put out of the Army for child pornography, and my chain of command talked to me and they said, hey, some of these images, some of the films or whatever that he had look just like you. And that was the first time I think I had ever talked to anybody about having done those films. And I told them, yes, when I was a child, I had to do those things.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit more about that circumstance. Like, so you were in the Army. What years were you in the Army then?
This would have been my second time in the Army. I rejoined in 2002, and I retired in 2016. From 91 to 98 as well. So I did a little over 21 years. But the time frame that they pulled me into the office and discussed that would have been around 2008, 2009 time frame. It was in Garrett.
Welcome to Amazon Logistics. We tried to contact you to facilitate a delivery of your order. For more information, or if you want to contact our customer service, go and visit the Amazon.
Between deployments.
Yeah.
So around that time is when they talked to me. And yeah, I can just remember
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Justin. I'm calling on behalf of the Amazon delivery station in Sterling Heights just regarding an issue that occurred with a delivery today to see if I can help out with that.
Yes.
But before we move forward, I would like to let you know that this call may be monitored or recorded for training purposes. And also to ensure that I do have the right customer, may I ask the full name on the Amazon account, please?
Yeah, it's Russell Sarquis.
Okay, so I do appreciate that, and it just looks like this particular order here requires a code. It's a 6-digit number, one-time password. Did you get that number today?
I was looking
Or
for it.
Are you aware of it? I guess I should ask.
So I've been given completely conflicting information about this by different people at Amazon. The guy that I just called and talked to get this escalated and have you called me, he told me that there was no code and that I was mistaken on that. And I'm like, I've had deliveries about like this before, and there is a code. Hang on one second. I'm just pulling over so I can look at my email to see if I got a code recently.
Yeah, no problem. Just wanted to let you know that the second part of that process is somebody does have to be home at the shipping address. So is somebody home?
Right now, no. But
Okay. So when is a good time that we could try to catch somebody at the shipping address?
I will be home. Let's see, it's 3:00. 4:30 or after.
Okay, so any time after 4:30.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. And then I think that whoever you spoke with prior to me contacting you might have been looking at the wrong order, because I see that you have a couple of items here, so it looks like they were able to leave one, just not the second part of it.
Yeah, I saw that. I got the delivery pictures of the other one, so.
Yeah, so I think that might have been what they were looking at here. So either way, I do see that there is a code on this one, and it sounds like you are aware of it too. So you had this process before?
Yeah, I've had the process before, and I did just get an email from Amazon, so maybe that's the code.
Okay. Could just be a notification that we missed you too. Sometimes they send just the email there, so it probably came in earlier in the AM, sometime in the morning here.
Okay.
But I could try to resend it here, so it'll pop up on top.
Yeah, if you could resend it, I'm looking
that way.
and I even checked my spam and I didn't see anything.
Yep, but so yeah, I'll just let the driver know to swing back around there if possible after 4:30. So we'll try to work with your timeline today. Okay. If by some chance that we are unable to meet that, then just be aware tomorrow you're going to get a new code if we can't make it back to today. But we'll be trying for you. We'll just pass along all this information to the driver once we finish up here. And then normally when you get deliveries at this address, items that don't require anybody to be home.
Yeah. Take care. You too. Bye.
I'm just going to start recording. There's that was caught with a bunch of child pornography.
But I don't recall. I can't even recall the soldier's name that got caught with it. I just knew he was an NCO, a staff sergeant.
And was there did anyone else ever talk to you about the films again? Did they ever talk? Did they ever infer that there was any further investigation in terms to when the films were produced? Did they ask you anything about who is involved, or did they?
No.
No.
They didn't go into any legality other than the prosecution of the soldier with the images. So in the military is a little bit different than civilian. I don't want to call it the court system because it's just the officers and NCOs in the military, but they have their sphere of influence. They have their little scope of operation, and if they uncover more, I think that they're required to give it to the civilian authorities, but they don't have any jurisdiction to go further than to just prosecute the soldier for the infraction that he is guilty of, if that makes sense the way I'm saying it.
No, I understand. Do they have any duty or is there any legality, or do they have legal requirements to inform civilian prosecutors of such cases?
Yes, if they suspect or if there's additional wrongdoing that is outside of their scope of being able to prosecute, and in this case to hold the individual soldier accountable for having this material that he's not supposed to have, beyond what they can prosecute, and then they refer the soldier to civilian court systems. But in this case, the military did handle the prosecution of the soldier, and I think all we got was like 30 days and reduction of rank to E1. They kicked him out of the Army, gave him a less than honorable discharge, I think. I don't think he even got a bad conduct for that. But I know that he was put out of the military, and I think he did the 30 days in jail. I think is the most that they can give you at the level that they prosecuted him at. So I'm not saying that for sure on the jail time, but I do know for a fact he was put out of the military.
Okay. So they had films. They had some of his films. Cable?
Yes, Hable. That was his last name, Habel, I think. Staff Sergeant Hable. I just remembered it. Because I could picture his face, and I just couldn't remember his name.
Hable. Okay. Habel.
Yes, I'm relatively certain on that name. I don't have the best memory. I was in a blast in Iraq, and one of the things that I struggle with mightily are names.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly sure that's his name.
Okay. And in terms of the films they had, so there was obviously a collection of pornography. Is there anyone you're in contact with of those your commanding officers that would they talk to you? Would they provide evidence, or is it a situation where
Michael Bayless is the only one that I remember speaking to about it. I have not spoken to him since I left Fort Carson in 2011. I would think that he would probably remember something like that, just the unusualness of it. First sergeants deal with things day in and day out, but I would think that he would remember that, just because of how it's not every day that you have to deal with something like that,
Yeah.
But it is possible. I think my commanding officer's name at that time was Captain Colasanto, but I'm not sure, because you get commanding officers come and go. The first sergeants, they tend to stick around longer.
Yeah.
But commanding officers are, a lot of times, they're only there for a year or two, and then they're off to the next thing. So my recollection of the commanding officer may not be accurate.
What's the the spelling of his last name? Colasanto?
Cola, Colasanto.
Okay. Saint Cola.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you think would be helpful to talk about right now about them? The time frame? That was the first time anyone had ever mentioned to you anything about the films other than when you were involved in filming? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The first time that I can recall anybody that it ever coming up, I always knew that they were, that the films, at least one or two of them were out there. I don't even know how many times I was filmed. But I can tell you that some of them are extraordinarily horrible. I can give you one instance where they were filming us. It was me and a girl that I knew that I've been trafficked with in other venues. And while we were filming, they came in and shot her in the head. So killed her, obviously. So that would be...
Was that the runaway?
That was another girl. I can't even remember her name. Yeah. The runaway was tortured to death in a duplex in Enterprise, Alabama. My parents did that, and that wasn't on film, but not her being tortured, but that was that black girl that I'm telling you about that later on Michael Bayless had talked to me about. But they went and got her because they were afraid that this was after the investigation in Tennessee, and they were afraid that they would go down for child pornography. So they were wanting to kill her, and then they were wanting to get rid of me via an accident, but they couldn't because they had already tried to kill me several times. They had the incident in Texas involving a Chevy van. There was another instance in Texas where my dad threw me into the middle of a pool and said sink or swim, and somebody saw it and called the sheriff, so there was a police report on that. And then there was a third instance in Texas where my dad threw me down a flight of stairs, and that one fractured my skull. Now, there may have been other things that happened as well, but I remember those three were enough that they generated an investigation. There were enough things that happened in Texas that my dad moved from Texas to Tennessee and then got in trouble in Tennessee, and they got in trouble in Tennessee and then moved to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, and then we just moved one more time.
And you're talking about
Alabama.
Your adoptive dad, William Kyle Riley, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have located my birth parents. My birth mother lives in Sierra Vista, and my birth father lives in Edmond, Oklahoma, but as yet, I have not reached out to either of them. I just, within the last year, probably 6 months, I learned where they live. So, I don't know, that's just an odd dynamic for me, and I'm still kind of processing that. But as far as family goes, I have a half-sister up in Massachusetts, and that's about it.
Okay. And your adopted dad, William Kyle Riley, worked as a pilot and was involved integrally in the Epstein-Trump
in all kinds of things.
Yeah. And he worked a lot with Trump and Epstein, correct?
I know that he was around Epstein and worked with Epstein, and I want to say that he flew for Epstein, and if not for Epstein directly, like transporting Epstein himself, he did transport some of the rich people to and from these parties that Epstein and company hosted. It wasn't just him. It was kind of a cabal of several people, and Epstein was the lead coordinator, maybe you would call it. But it's much more than just him as an individual. You know, it was people like him, like Trump, other people, and I can't remember, like how many, but he was he was handy to have around because he was a part of the process, and he isn't just a like an airline pilot or something like that. He can fly anything. He can fly helicopters, fixed wing, smaller aircraft, larger aircraft. I mean, he's that pilot, that kind of that multi-purpose guy that could transport whatever you need.
Okay, so
And
he's,
I don't know if he ever got into the drugs. I can remember him talking at one point, and he had refused to do a drug run, basically, and somebody else took that drug run, and they got busted.
yeah,
So I don't know what kind of aircraft it was or whatever, and it was around Florida that guy got busted. I think he flew down to the Virgin Islands or something like that. I can't remember these specific details, but I can remember the conversation that my dad had talking about, thank God I didn't take that. And because the guy got busted and he wound up, huge amount of charges, 25 to life or whatever the heck he got. But I can remember from his perspective being nervous because the people that he was working with, he was scared that they were going to set him up to take the fall for something, to just get rid of him, because he had been involved in so much other criminality that he was really nervous about taking on anything else. I know that's kind of word salad the way that I've said it, but I think you kind of understand what I'm saying.
I do. No, I understand perfectly. So your dad would obviously, my understanding is your dad was the kind of pilot that those sort of criminals would want to use because they could use him to fly anything in any situation, to airlift Trump out, like you said, when you almost killed Trump, when Trump was assaulting you, or fly guests in.
But,
he wasn't a pilot in that case?
Kind of pilot, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But
No, that's okay. So, yeah, I've spoken to folks that, they look for those sorts of pilots. They want pilots that can guess traffickers into situations in and out discreetly, trafficking victims in and out of situations discreetly, and victims that they killed out of situations discreetly, all sorts of nonsense. So it seems like
and that's what he did. He shuttled the people, but I can remember him not wanting to cross the bridge over to running drugs.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, if he got caught with some people, he could just play dumb. And I was just transporting this guy's kid to, from the, here to there. I didn't know anything. So
did your dad?
I go ahead.
Did your dad transport the victims most often?
Oh, absolutely.
So more victims than guests. I don't want to call them guests.
I would say more guests than victims,
Okay.
But he definitely transported both.
Okay. And that was either directly for Epstein, wasn't transporting Epstein so much as Epstein's victims and Epstein's guests.
And the clients.
Okay.
Yes.
The clients.
But he was definitely around Epstein. I can remember the one time that I can remember meeting both of them, and I can't even remember Jeffrey hardly at all, but I can remember the conversation in the car where they kept asking how to say Ghislaine's name because it was unusual, and during that meeting, my mom wanted to get the name right, for whatever. That was important to her,
Yeah. And what's your mom's name again?
Her name was Mary Lynn Riley. This would be
Mary
kind of my
Lynn Riley.
third mom because my dad adopted me with a lady named Irene Ursula Litsky was her maiden name.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Peter now. But those two adopted me. He got divorced from Irene in 79 or 80 and almost immediately married Lynn. So Irene may have been involved in some of that, but that would be from a time frame that I don't have clear recollection of. I do have clear recollection of Mary Lynn Riley's involvement but she died via suicide a number of years ago.
Okay. Now, what are you most comfortable to talk about next? I mean, let me ask some more questions in terms of the. Now, you told me about Trump and about Biggs and about Jordan. I feel like that's important to discuss in details. And let me ask you a question. Do you think it's more helpful for you to talk about what you remember first, when you were first trafficked, the circumstances, individuals involved, or do you want to talk about some of the incidents that we spoke about a bit by email already? What do you think is most helpful for you?
Fill in whatever gaps in that I can. I have spoken to you about most of what I remember clearly, but I can give you some of the details with those three, and that's why I am willing to talk about them. You know, there's no. I remember more things, but I just can't give you much in the way of detail for anybody other than those three. I can remember Jim Jordan. I went to a party. This was at a farm. There were, 25 to 50 people there. I mean, it was a good amount of people, but not a massive crowd by any stretch. But the experience that my dad sold to those people was, if you could pin me, then you could do whatever you wanted. But my dad had taught me how to fight. He had been a bare knuckle brawler earlier in his life, and I know that he had worked kind of just beating people up for a little extra money at one point in his life. He also entered into the tough man contest, stuff like that. So it was kind of a game for them, because I was just a child, so you would think that you could, do whatever you wanted, but if they got anywhere near me, I would hit them. And by the time that Jim Jordan assaulted me, I was old enough that those adults, most of them not being athletic in any way, these are people that, they're not fighters by any stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get anywhere near me, and Jim Jordan just sort of rushed me and tackled me, and I might have known how to fight, but I didn't know how to wrestle. So he assaulted me in front of a crowd, and I think that it was filmed, but I can't swear that it was filmed, but it was in front of those 25 or 50 people.
And how old were you?
That's why I remembered. I was around 12.
12.
When that happened.
And of those 25, 50 people, go ahead.
The reason that I remember Jim Jordan is, first, he stood out because he wasn't that much. He's only 7 or 8 years older than me. So at the time frame that I'm at 12, he is right around just graduating high school, maybe first year or two of college, right? So him being so much younger stood out. And then I remembered his jawline. He has a very pronounced jawline. I remembered his voice, and his mannerisms haven't changed throughout his life either. So when I really started, as soon as Trump went down that escalator and said he was running for president, I got involved in politics. I started watching it. I started watching who supported him and everything like that. And I remember Jim Jordan just from watching him on the floor of Congress, speaking to the different people that, go up there and testify. So, and that's him, I just remembered him. So,
yeah.
I know that's not, but you give me a polygraph, I'm going to take it, because I'm 100% sure that it was him.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy Biggs, I remember, because on the way to this, they took me to a house. And this wasn't at a party. This was later, after I had assaulted Trump, and it was kind of a punishment type of thing, where he was going to get to assault me and I guess not pay my parents, and he got to do whatever he wanted. And I can remember telling me I wasn't allowed to fight back or they'd kill me, and all of this, but they must have said his name 50 times in the car. So Biggs I kept hearing Biggs, Andy Biggs, and I thought, I'm going to remember this name. And after he assaulted me, I don't even remember the assault necessarily, but I remember being in the car afterwards and being like really nauseous, sick to my stomach. I was seeing spots, and I mean, the guy beat me until I had broken ribs and was convulsing, turning blue and stuff like that. And the only part of that assault that I can remember is laying on the floor of the room trying to breathe, and I could hear Andy and my dad, remember Biggs, saying, "You said I could do whatever I wanted." And everything going on for an extended period of time, and then I can remember being in the car leaving and just having my eyes closed because my head was spinning and everything, and I was trying to breathe, just in and out, you know. So that's why I remember him so clearly. I have had more than one encounter with Trump, and that's why I tried to kill that son of a bitch, because he is a fucking monster. It's why I have not shut up about just how absolutely abhorrent he is as a human being, and it's why I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I had decided, I had already seen enough other people die that in my mind I thought, well, they're just going to kill me too at some point, right? You know, I'm not going to survive to be an adult from this. So in my mind, he was the biggest pile of shit that I had ever had to have any contact with, so I was going to take him with me. And
how often did Trump assault you? Do you remember?
I can remember two specifically. A third one that I think, and I think I was around him more than just those 3 times, but only 3 times do I kind of remember. I can remember at one point him asking the people that were kind of running that party or whatever it was at that bar, he wanted to kill somebody. He wanted to murder somebody. Hey, that's not this kind of party, you can't do that. And they, in lieu of doing that, they said, well, we've got some puppies if you just want to kill something, we've got to get rid of them anyway. So I can remember him taking those puppies one by one, and like he snapped one of the puppies' necks, he cut one open and let it just howl and you know, writhe in pain while it died, held one under some water to kill it. You know, he wanted to kill those puppies in you know, whatever gruesome way, you know, to experience, I guess, seeing them suffer in different ways. What his kink is, I guess, if you want to call it that, is watching people suffer. He likes to destroy people physically, mentally, during the process of the assault. That's why he stands out so much in my memory. You know, and it's physical pain, and then it's also, you know, degrading and all of that. But his thing was to just try to destroy human beings to the utmost that he could possibly do it, which is why I attacked him.
Yeah, it's understandable. So,
I can tell you this, that the last one, okay, so this was after they had killed the Samantha, was the black girl that I made the one of the movies with.
Yeah. And these were, let me just ask a question just to clarify it. So when Samantha was killed, these were all of these parties at the farm or similar locations to the farm? Where there was
it was multiple farms.
Multiple farms, and usually it was parties. So there was individuals like Trump that were flown into the parties. And
yes.
Then
and they would have like a building, you know, a house, and they would usually have like a tent set up, and you know, it was almost like a little, I don't want to say a fair, it wasn't that big, they didn't have rides or anything, but it was a kind of a coordinated deal, you know. Sometimes they would have the bare knuckle fighting. That's that probably is how my dad got involved with these people, because you've got boxing and stuff like that on TV, but that's really all you had back in the 70s and 80s. More the MMA type of stuff wasn't allowed, and these fights were a little more gruesome. They didn't fight to the death or anything like that, but they were bloody, and these were fights, and not just boxing. And so the rich people would pay to see that. Sometimes they'd have like a band playing, just like what you would expect at like a fair or something.
So the rich folks would get flown in, associated with Epstein, and they would pay to watch the victims fight. The victims were all underage. And would they pay to then assault the victims after the fights or during the fights? And they'd pay to torture the victims and rape the victims and kill the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults. So they had some big old country boy and some other guy. They would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer, but that's how I got my start with all of that. So yes, they would have paid for that, and the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money. So they offered $5,000 to have sex with me, then my dad was willing to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't
Sasha,
know.
that isn't sex. That's sexual assault.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say something first. I think you're extremely brave. You behave extremely strong, like a warrior. And I just want to stop and say it's important for me to say that, because a lot of folks, wouldn't even survive such trauma, but you've survived, and you conduct yourself with dignity and gracefully, and it is important for me to say that. I hope you know that. I hope you have a sense of your own honor and chivalrousness, especially what you told me in terms of drugs they used on you and how they made you drunk to behave monstrous towards other kids. I understand
I can remember. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I can remember some arm of law enforcement showing me video of me harming one of the people that they were filming me with. Now, I don't know how that came about, whether they drugged me and I lost my mind, or they told me to do it. I don't know the circumstances, but I can remember being in that room and them saying, well, you did this. And it may have not even been law enforcement. It may have been, like the people that were running that. But I can remember being really upset because I had no recollection of having done that. It was me in the video, and I was beating somebody, a girl senseless. And I didn't kill her or anything like that, but I don't know,
Yeah.
So, and I have a feeling, this part I can't prove because I only have my own experiences, but what the whole thing seems to be is that they first abuse you, then they get you on film abusing others, and now they have you trapped as well.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about the abuse that they did to you. If they want you to be a legacy victim, somebody that they can use in the future, well, then they've got to get you on tape doing monstrous things to other people as well, because now they have the leverage to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, no, and you know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly the tactic. And the tactic is insidious because have you ever heard of the torture technique a lot of occult practitioners use? It's called inversion torture. Inversion magic isn't magic. Sorcery is just smoke and mirrors nonsense, deception techniques. but it's sort of inversion technique where to try to linguistically manipulate the victims to try to get the victims in a position where the victims doubt whether the victims, are good or not.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the case with a lot of the Republicans you mentioned. Like you said, Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham were at these parties. You can't remember if Lindsey Graham and Clarence Thomas participated. And it's sort of a question of, did they participate? Were they blackmailed because they were there, attended the parties, but they didn't participate? Can you tell me much more about Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham?
I know the least about him. The only reason that I can remember him is because he was a black man. And I'm sorry, but that club is pretty much just white folks. So having a black person there was very unusual. So he stood out. But the only thing that I can really say is that I remembered him being there. And then I remember what a big deal it was in our household when he got confirmed onto the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because my dad was excited about that because of how high up he was. Now, I can't swear. I may have been assaulted by Clarence Thomas, but I cannot swear to that. If he did assault me, then it was not to the level of something that scared me to the point where I needed to remember it, if that's a good way to put that, which Trump rose to that, and Andy Biggs rose to that, and Jim Jordan rose to that because he was dangerous to me because I could keep most people away from me with my fists, but, he was a good wrestler, so, he scared me in that sense that this is a person that I can't, that I can't keep away from me with my fists. Lindsey Graham, I am fairly sure he has assaulted me, but I just can't put my hand on a Bible and swear to that.
Yeah.
I know that he was there. I can remember it. He just like Jim Jordan, he has very distinct mannerisms, and his voice is a little unusual as well. So I could remember his voice, I could remember his mannerisms, and then obviously how he looks. So I can put him there, but I just can't. I can't say he did this or he did that exactly. I just can't.
Okay. So
I wish that I could provide more information on that because I think some things went on, but that's just not enough for me to point a finger and make an accusation. But he was there. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, that's enough, and I know that some sorts of interviews we can look at a different time to see if there is any more information you remember. But what you do remember, I just want you to know what you remember to know. What you remember is extremely important and is extremely helpful. I know you want to be able to remember more, and memories are in there. And I just want to approach the situation delicately because
some of the other memories are just vague. I can and I have been very careful too not to reach out further because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once.
During the 1980s?
Yes.
Okay.
Vladimir Putin, I don't know even when he ascended to the presidency, but I remember the name because it's so unusual. Now, at that point, he may have just been, one of the Russian oligarchs or whatever, but his name came up, and I remember just because it's an unusual name, Vladimir Putin, but I don't believe he was ever there. So that is like, I don't know, there are other names like that too.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about
I
Putin.
remember Clinton's name being brought up, but I don't ever remember seeing it.
So Clinton was mentioned, but you never saw Clinton.
Not that I can recall. And that's another thing too. I may have had interactions with additional people, but during some of them, I was so drugged out of my mind, I don't really remember what happened, you know?
Yeah. When you heard them talk about Putin, so it was at one of the parties of one of the farms, do you remember what they were saying about Putin?
Just that he was some sort of like foreigner that was very important. That I didn't know any more. You know, the name was just unusual, and they mentioned his name. You know, they kind of had fun saying his name. You know, Vladimir. You know, does he like to go by Vlad or this that? But the meeting with that person, I don't think ever materialized. I think it was just something that was discussed and never happened. Now, if he has other connections, you know, and he very well may, that's possible. But I can just remember there were, at those parties, there were people that had strange accents. But that's it. That's all I could say. I couldn't point and say, well, this person was from Spain or this person was from Portugal. I have no idea. But what I do know for a fact is not every person at those parties was American.
Yeah.
I know that's not a lot, but I only remember what I
have a question with Trump. I mean, with Putin. Did you get the sense that the party attendees, that the clients were interested in Putin? There was something they wanted from Putin. They thought they could get money from Putin, influence from Putin. Did you have any sense of that?
The only sense that I had was that this was for the rich people, regardless of where they were from. So
Yeah.
at this point in my child brain, I knew that there were rich people, and those people got to do whatever they wanted, and then there were poor people like me, and those people, you know, that was the dynamic. So, you know, that's it. I never heard them say anything about blackmailing and stuff like that, but I can remember them showing me a video of me doing bad stuff, and then I can remember people telling me